This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Tanner, welcome in.
Austin, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You have worked at some pretty big companies, like you were saying, Merkle and several other larger companies. And now Pantelope is a startup going into the scale-up phase. I'm curious what the biggest differences are, either in culture or strategy or just overall, that you notice from a smaller company that's pushing very hard to be competitive in the market against some of your previous employers. What do you notice?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think what's really exciting about it is it's a chance for you to kind of learn from the bigger companies and take what works very well or what could be some opportunities and integrate them into your own business. I've had the fortune of working at some fantastic organizations, places that are very data focused, always looking at strategic level insights, work with a bunch of industry leaders. That was all fantastic. And you kind of then can sort of refine down to what's the most important things to you, and then try to craft your team around that. So I think it's been excellent just trying to develop a team that cares a lot about data, for example, right? Or incrementality or, client communications, and just kind of picking out those different principles and pillars and making sure you integrate them into how you conduct yourself, how you manage your team, and then how you work with clients is super valuable. So.
And you have a rather large team in comparison to the size of the company. And congratulations on your recent advancement, your recent role. What's it like to manage a team of that size? And can you speak to a little bit more about maybe how big the team is and what the roles look like on the team?
Yes, we have about 20 people here at Pantelope. It's growing, but we're also very much in the startup phase where, if a team member comes to leadership and says, "Hey, this looks like it's broken," that's probably going to be the person who fixes it. It's very much that kind of go get them, building sort of community where each person has unlimited autonomy in just trying to contribute and add value to the business. So that's really fantastic. And, culturally, we try to really instill a lot of, focus on growth, focus on solving problems, a lot of independence and accountability. Everyone really understands that they're accountable for their projects, responsibilities. And that allows us to scale it faster because we have a team of people who can get things done in a timely and accurate manner. So that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, you can be pretty agile with a smaller team, and there's not like the bureaucracy that you might see at some of the bigger agencies. I've been talking to lots of agency owners. I'm very blessed to do so on this podcast. So I kind of get to hear different perspectives from people. And one of the questions that I asked, this was just yesterday, I asked an agency founder, I said, what hard decisions do you think you'll have to make in the next 12 months if things keep going the way that they're going with AI and everything? And I was kind of surprised by his answer. He actually said, I love everyone on our team and they're really good at what they do. However, things are just getting easier and easier to do and more efficient. So I'm concerned at the size of the team might not need to be as large. I'm curious, A, what are your thoughts on that? But B, how do you, what are people doing as things become more and more efficient? How are you justifying everybody's role?
Yeah, that's a great question. Something I see floating around a lot as well. I think there are a couple of ways we can sort of approach it. It's like, yes, do tasks become easier? Probably to a certain extent. Are people able to do more with the same amount of time? Yes, but do I think I would, cut back personnel as a response of like recent technology advancements? No, it would just change the expectations for each individual. And I think, doubling down on people, investing in your people and having them trust you is really just how you continue to scale and grow through a challenging time, right? So, maybe it hits margin a little bit, but, if you have a team like we do of people who are eager to develop new methodologies for using AI or to expand their own channels that they focus on, or reinvest in their own development, I think that it can actually be a liberating sort of advancement where people are able to kind of elevate their own skill sets with this new tool. So that's how we try to navigate the situation.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's probably going to be a competitive advantage for startups like Pantelope, who are scaling very fast. And you have people on the team who are very excited and they see the growth and they see their own personal growth on that same trajectory. And they're like, man, I realize it sounds like your team is on that same path. They're like, I realize if I can get really good at what I'm doing now, I'm going to be able to create outsized results for the agency and therefore put myself in a great position to, one, have longevity, but two, to achieve my goals along with the business. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's how we try to think about it. But who knows? I mean, things are changing
Yeah.
so quickly. It's just like 12 months from now, like it could be a completely different world. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you guys doing in terms of how you're seeing SEO shift, ranking on LLMs, ranking on AI overviews? Like, I'm curious what sort of tests you've run that have actually moved the needle in terms of AI search visibility.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question as well. I think we're also trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Just
dude.
to be completely candid,
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has really broke the code except for the engineer who built the code.
Mm-hmm.
What we're there are essentially two ways to go about it that I've been working on. First and foremost, flood the zone, throw it up the wall, see what sticks. Just create as much and as high quality as possible, right? And leverage AI to be a volume scaler, so that way you're able to just be dominant and ever present in the space. One possible approach, while the other is more kind of at the niching down. It seems like Google is getting better at putting businesses where they think the business is most relevant, right? There's kind of like a pigeonholing of just different websites and brands into, kind of their respective lanes. So it really is this balance between both strategies. I think you can talk about very specific enhancements, the tech side, schema markup, web page configuration, template optimization, headers, the kind of traditional SEO stuff. And then on the content side, I've been reading some really fascinating articles about content that breaks through the mold around, having comparison guides or more orderly instructions or trying to curate the content to LLM results. Now, I think it's a little too early for me to say exactly what works, but I think if you just go back to the fundamentals of organic marketing and think about, I'm a brand, I've got this product or service that I'm trying to sell, and here's the value proposition and why we are the organization or the brand you should buy from. It's hard to go wrong from that, if you just make sure that the messaging aligns with those core principles.
Yeah. Yeah. Sticking to the fundamentals is always a good idea. Essentially playing by the rules of what big tech is saying works and not trying to hack the system. That's based on the
Yeah.
people that I've talked to. They're like, that's where people get in trouble is they try and get a leg up by doing some sort of black hat method. And then it
Yeah.
comes back to bite them in the butt. Yeah.
Right. Like back in the day, keyword stuffing, put a bunch of white text on a white page. It's the same kind of thing where it's like, rather than fight the current or whatever, I think it's probably best to just sort of see where it pushes you and take advantage of that once you land there.
Yeah. Talk to me more. You have a pretty technical background, and it hasn't always been that way, right? You didn't go to college for marketing, but
Right.
from what I understand, you have a pretty technical background. You understand schema very well. And is there anything unique or specific that you're doing off page that, you're adding into the strategy that maybe wasn't there a year ago?
Yeah, absolutely. From a technical standpoint, I mean, you need to be in compliance with Google best practices, and that's like the non-starter, right? You got to make sure you check all those boxes. But off page, it's becoming more interesting to test on third-party channels and outside reference sources. And I'd imagine you probably hear this from other people as well. But if you look at where AI overviews or the ChatGPT or different tools are aggregating information, you're able to see that not only do they weigh what you're saying, but they weigh what customers are saying, third parties, review sites, right? And back to kind of aligning those principles and fundamentals, you need to make sure that all of your ranking signals, right, align across those different third parties. And that will be kind of the next unlock because that will enable your site to communicate service as efficiently as possible with validation and authority from external sources.
Yeah, you're talking like reviews on all different kinds of sites like Google. Yeah, right?
Yeah, reviews or videos, right? YouTube videos, TikTok
Oh,
videos, Reddit, like Yelp, just basically marketing is going to go horizontal in like a big way. And it's all just kind of being bubbled up into these very short snippets and results, but you can see in the references for those results the multiple like origins of information.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like there's a line that's being blurred between organic search and organic social. Like
Yep.
these lines are starting to blur, right? You have alt text and captions being now being analyzed and crawled, if you will, and showing up in Google results. Do you
Yeah.
have, and maybe this is a little bit too far off topic, but do you have someone that's almost like a community manager, like for Reddit or for other forums? Or is it kind of like, is that just plugged into the social team, which is now associated with the SEO team? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of the latter, of
Hmm.
course, with best practices in mind. We just try to understand the story and the data for what these different sites or third parties are saying, and then respond to that, because, digital as a research tool is kind of like how SEO, right? Is someone has a prompt, they want to find some information, right?
Hmm.
But if you look at the signals from different tools or the discussions or information from different forums, it gives you a better picture of yourself and how machines understand, your product or service.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
you're
yeah,
yeah, I know. It's an interesting background because my background is community management. I was telling you when I worked at this company called Mind Valley in 2019. That was my role, community management, and it was
right.
all about like, listening, and social listening seems to be what we're talking about in this conversation. It's like, yes, we're putting out good content, but where does that content come from? It's no longer just talking about query fan outs, like there's more to it. There's a lot more
Right.
to it,
Yeah,
Like Pantelope and you particularly as an author, like you're publishing quite a few blogs, at least from what I've seen.
sure.
How do you find like relevant content? Is there a new way that you're doing it? Is it expanded, using AI? Like how are you finding the content that you know to post?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Mm,
And I think SEOs everywhere are trying to figure out how do we respond to this recent change. My philosophy is that traditional high search volume keywords that are informational based are just going to kind of be wrapped up in these AI tools and AI overviews,
yeah.
right? I think I've read somewhere that click through rate for top one queries featured with AI overviews is down like 60% or something crazy. But why would someone click through the website when they get the information that they want before they even go there, right? I mean, we
Hmm.
have to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in order to get through that, you have to find unique and creative ways to communicate useful and value adding information. I think making sure that your time and geo specific is super important these days, right? So, whether it's what to do in LA in August, right?
Mm.
25, having those little bits of specificity to your content, I think is actually the differentiator.
Yeah, yeah. Man, specificity. So at DWS, Digital Web Solutions, the host of this podcast, we also do digital PR along with a
Yeah,
bunch of other stuff.
totally.
But some of the campaigns that have done particularly well are location and season specific. Like there was one that we did on which city in the US gets the most vandalism around Halloween. And that
Yes.
seemed to do really well. And we did it for a law firm. In the niche and like in the market that you're in, how does that differ, with senior living? How does that differ from other markets that you've worked in?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I think the principles are similar from place and time across the industry. I think that I rely heavily on search data with my own, biased SEO background,
Hmm.
but really refining that data down to, different geographies, right? Different zip codes, understanding the keywords that are most pertinent to those areas, and really just going down on like a micro level to
Mm.
understand the needs and concerns of people in those targeted markets is kind of how I look at it a little differently from a national brand with, broader audiences to more specific targeted groups.
Mm, mhm. And with like you're talking about physical locations at a time in somebody's life where it's like you have to have a lot of compassion and be very sensitive. And at the same time, like we're all in business to make money, right? It's like, yeah, it's a very delicate balance, is what it sounds like, putting out the right content that's empathetic, that has the human touch. What is like, can you share a little bit more about what your process is like from how you're implementing AI to create content? And then where do you insert the human touch to maintain that empathy while still getting the business outcomes?
I think, a piece of SEO that's been kind of underplayed in the past is really coordinating with your sales and marketing teams of your
Hmm.
clients. So understanding the people who are on the phones, right? Or understanding the people who are handling the leads, right? And just kind of connecting those dots to understand what we're solving for is the most important element, right? So like, it is a business. We're all here to kind of grow our businesses. But at the same time, we're trying to connect people with the services that they are looking for, right? So I think that understanding, the funnel completely, and then what the stages are for each industry and for senior living specifically, collaborating with really, talented sales engineers to share insights and develop content around it adds that extra level of value.
Yeah. And you have a pretty broad background. Like you've been in sales roles, I would assume, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of.
a little bit here. I've been a bit of a jack of all, master of none kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Which, by the way, the something that Eric Sue had posted on his LinkedIn was basically like the jack of all trades and the master of none in today's world is seen as this like negative connotation. But back in the days of like Michelangelo and all these other, ancient people who were influencers of the world, Thomas
Sure.
Edison, etc., they were a jack of all trades and they were a master of none. They just tinkered and put stuff together, and
Totally.
that's what creates these new inventions. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a very talented manager back in the day, and he said, in digital marketing, you should be a Swiss Army knife, but carry a big effing machete, and that could be, organic or paid or whatever you want it to be.
Uh-huh.
But just knowing a little bit about everything helps you kind of connect those dots, similar to the
Yeah.
example provided.
Yeah, the T-shape, right? It's a T-shape marketer. Kind of know a little
Yeah,
bit about
exactly.
everything, but then go really deep. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about your team, but just before this, I want to bring in what we were talking about before we hit record, which is your approach to, let's say, life in general, like meditation and weathering the storm, I suppose. What's the culture like on your team? Like, do
Mhm.
you guys do anything, do you have core values? Like Amazon has, I don't know, a bunch of different core values. Are there, yeah, is there like a code that you guys go by?
Yeah, I think we operate by a couple core fundamentals. The first being accountability. I'm a huge proponent of allowing people to reach the fullest of their extent. That's how I was trained, and it's a great approach. And just putting people in a place where they feel comfortable innovating, where they feel comfortable failing, and learning from that and growing. I really pride myself in giving my team the capacity for them to kind of do what they think is right, and in some cases, if it's not right, learn from it and then, expand that in other ways. I think people need to trust their team members. And, I definitely do. And that's something that I'm quite excited by because getting to our next principle, it allows us to really be pragmatists. It allows us to solve problems. It allows us to work horizontally. And it really enables our clients to get the most out of the engagement because they have a team of marketers and
Mm,
organic consultants, not just
mm.
SEOs.
Yeah. You can use that Swiss Army knife a lot
Yeah,
better.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Looking into the future, like what do you think if you had Tanner who was 12 months in the future and he was coming back to you today and he was telling you a little bit about the future, what's
Sure.
one thing do you think he would say like you need to stop doing this? And then what's another thing that he's like you need to double down on doing this?
Yeah, I think a lot about opportunity cost, and just what kind of initiatives we want to invest in. It feels like in this day and age, we're all trying to hit a moving target, whether it's, Google's latest algorithm update or ranking in AI tools or understanding where the next, paid performance campaign is going to go. I think that often leads to us testing a bunch of things, trying out different types of strategies. But I always want to look at the ROAS from different campaigns, whether it's organic or paid. And I think really dominating within your niche or a very small segment and then expanding that kind of more broadly is the way to go as opposed to casting a little bit of a wider net. So I've got some projects I'm working on where we're trying to capitalize on impression share, which is a fantastic metric, but as a lot of
What do you
SEOs will
mean by
talk
that?
about,
Sorry to cut you off. What is impression share?
yeah. So if people search something for 1,000 times in a month, right? How many of those 1,000 impressions do you capture? Right. So if we have KPIs that are around impressions or brand visibility, it's like, okay, do we want to create content that gets as much impressions as possible? Is that the business driver we're looking for?
Mhm.
And what is an impression? In 2025 August,
Mm.
right? Is it an AI overview that's filtering through? Is it a featured snippet or a rich results? And how much can we really trust? Some of the metrics at times.
Mm.
What
Mm.
story do they tell?
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, KPIs are it seems like KPIs are changing these days. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can used to be able to bring back to clients and say, "Hey, look at look at the reach we got, like look at how many likes we got, back in the day when social media was brand new. Like, hey, look at all these likes we got. What KPIs? Well, let me ask you two questions. What are the leading indicators that you're looking at? Like what inputs do you like hold the team accountable for? And then what are some of the lag indicators? Like what response are you looking at to show that the business is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. It varies by project and business need, right? Whether it is an efficiency project or just a total revenue. I think that for my team, each team member knows exactly what they're trying to drive on their account. That's sort of part of my philosophy, right? Like, what's the KPI, and then how do we work backwards from that goal? And then again, like kind of thinking back to the moving target element of everything, I feel like rolling KPIs are going to be a better thing to look at in the future with marketing. Time and place is great. August year over year, how's it comparing? But when things are changing so dramatically, if we look back to previous periods more frequently or other types of 30, 60, 90-day moving averages, it's what is the broader trend? And are things working or are they not working? And just being very honest with some of those rolling metrics, I think is where I'm going to try to start incorporating a little bit more thought and strategy.
As we kind of round out our time here, we've talked a lot about SEO and search and on the marketing side, but you're actually
Yeah.
in a chief revenue officer position. How does that play into the mix? I'm curious, like, where do you kind of draw the line? Yeah, can you just tell me a little bit more about like what it's like to be a CRO?
Yeah, it's great. I was promoted relatively recently, so I'm kind of still getting my feet in the right place, but it's exciting, right? Because similar to my philosophy with managing, leadership trusts me to kind of, work through different problems as far as, what kind of products can we offer? How can we kind of take what I've talked about as far as horizontal marketing and integrate it into different products or service lines to help clients reach their goals? So, whether it is optimizing current business, whether it's, offering new lines of business or service and, communicating that in an effective way to clients. That's sort of been bulk of the responsibility, but it's fun. It's exciting. It's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I've just been really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you got your hands completely full. Going back to the team size, right? You have 10 people on the team. I'm curious how many of those are finance people, how many are sales or in biz dev, and then how many are actually in the marketing side?
Yeah. It's about the majority of the team's operators. We have a couple sales and biz dev team members, but I would say we're at like 80% operators and 20% sales biz dev.
Okay, cool. And if you let me just wrap this up here. I'll give you another. Hopefully, it's an underhand, a slow pitch. As a CRO, so yes, incorporating the marketing style, but more so from the seat of a CRO. If you had the opportunity to have a billboard that is from Tanner, not from Pantelope, and you could put a message on the billboard that every agency in 2025 would see, what's your message that you would put out to the world?
To all agencies in 2025.
All agencies in 2025.
Wow.
To help them succeed. Maybe not to your,
Yeah.
the competition, like, oh, you should do everything wrong. No. I mean, like, to help them succeed.
Got it. It's going to sound so corny, but have fun. I love my job. I love SEO. I love doing digital. At the end of the day, if you're not enjoying it, though, it's like maybe your business is suffering. Maybe you're too stressed. Maybe everything's kind of passing by you. I live in California. I love to be on the sun. So
Yeah.
I think just working hard, playing hard, enjoying what you do and kind of creating a culture of warmness, I think is a way to help everybody succeed. So that's going to be my really corny answer. What would you say?
Dude, I love this. Well, I'm glad you asked because I got it in my back pocket. I'm ready to go. I just actually right before this podcast, I went to Toastmasters. Do you know what Toastmasters is?
Yeah. I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like a public speaking group, right? And I signed up to give a speech today, and the title of my speech was called Flow, the Stairway to Heaven. So
Okay.
my billboard would probably say, find flow, it's the stairway to heaven. I don't know, something like that. But
Yeah, totally.
like I agree, man. Like with all the cool tools, everything's moving so fast. I find it easier and easier to find myself in this state of like timelessness, and my self-consciousness drops, and like my action and awareness just combine. It's a state of being fully engaged in the activity. And that's what I would say is like whatever challenges you have, like find a challenge that is about 4% more than your skill level, and give yourself enough time to dive in, and you'll be able to find flow very easily.
Yeah, I'd concur with that billboard.
Yeah. You'd honk the horn. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, Tanner, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or about Pantelope?
Yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'll make sure to include a link to my profile, but happy to continue having discussions or answer any questions for anyone who reaches out.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on to the show.
Excellent. Thank you.